Your teen just bombed the August SAT, and now as a parent, you're wondering where to go next. This is the exact 3-step method I use with our students to make sure that by the time they take the November or December exams, they absolutely dominate. For those of you guys who don't know me yet, my name is Jared Nguyen. I'm the founder and director of Geometry Guru's SAT Prep, and at this point in my career, I've helped hundreds of students increase their SAT scores so that they can go to their dream colleges or qualify for scholarships. With that being said, let's get straight into it. Once you get that August score report back and you're not happy with it, the first thing that you need to do is accept radical accountability for your teen's score, which means it's not your teen's school fault, it's not their tutor's fault, it's not their sports or their extracurriculars fault. No, it is your fault and it is their fault equally. The reason why this is so important is because if you blame everything else besides your team, besides yourself, then all of a sudden it's not in your ability to fix it because everything else is what's causing the problems, not yourself specifically. The minute you take radical ownership for that exam, then you have the power to actually fix that. Your teen has scored that score for a reason. It's either they don't understand the concepts, they didn't have the timing, or a little bit of both. You need to understand that first before you move on to my next 3 steps. Step number 1 right after that is what we call here the efficiency index. Now, so many students, they just blindly go into SAT prep, not knowing what their weaknesses are. They just do Khan Academy, Blue Book, rinse and repeat. But the problem is it doesn't focus on why you got these concepts incorrect. For example, it'll tell you maybe how to do the concepts just overall, but it's not really laser focused on your teen's specific weaknesses. Because there's really only 3 reasons why you would ever get something wrong in the exam. Number 1, you just don't understand it. Maybe you never learned it before, or maybe you just forgot it because it was so long ago in grade school. Second one is timing, as in you know how to do these problems, but you don't know how to do them in 30 to 60 seconds. Third one is fatigue, as in you spent so much time on the beginning or the easy part of the modules that by the time you got to the hard part of the module, even if you know how to do it, you don't have enough brain power to really demonstrate what you know how to do. So obviously, if you don't know exactly why you're making the mistakes, then I don't care how many practice problems your teen does, they're never going to get to that underlying issue. They might be practicing the wrong things. For example, we just had a student, Abhiram, go from a 1300 to a 1500 in less than 12 weeks. With him, he thought he had an issue in geometry because he was getting those questions wrong. But then when he was going through and doing these problems, he was telling our team, coaches, I actually know how to do these problems, right? It's just that, I just keep getting them wrong. I don't know why. So I keep practicing geometry, but I feel like that's not the right thing. And he was right. And that was because his algebra skills, he was spending on average 3 minutes on those algebra questions. So if he had 3 minutes for those algebra questions, it was going to take away from his ability to do the geometry questions, which are historically way harder. What we had to do with him, once we understood it was algebra, we had to retarget those areas over and over and over again. So that ended up shaving off 90 seconds per problem on those algebra questions, in which he was able to actually transfer that time into geometry and trigonometry, and he was able to finish those problems because he had more time. So that's the importance of working on the correct things. Step number 2, once we understand step number 1, we know exactly which of the 64 concepts that your teen needs the most help in. Now we need to give them real SAT problems that mimic the same types of problems that they're missing right now. Except we make sure that they're timed and we make sure that they're slightly harder than the real SAT. Now, the reason why this is so important is because, yes, the practice needs to be laser targeted. Some students, all they do is just go through a packet or a test prep book and they just do everything and, just waste a bunch of time and energy on things that maybe they already know how to do. So yes, it's important to be targeted. However, even when you work with targeted material, it needs to be slightly harder than the real thing so that it simulates the actual pressure. It needs to be timed, because if you don't have it timed, if you don't have it slightly harder, then even if you do know how to do it and it's targeted, by the time you see it on the real test, you're just going to freeze up. We want your teen to just be like, yep, done this a million times. It feels like nothing to me. Step number 3 is what we call here the test simulation. So here's where a lot of students go wrong. They either use easy material or easy practice exams like the Blue Book, the Princeton Review, and then they take the real thing. They think they're going to score 1500 or even a 1350, but then they score 100 points less than what they would score on those practice exams on the real thing because they're just not using tests that are hard enough. And it's kind of a shock to them. They're just like, hey, I was scoring really well on the practice exam. What gives? That's why here we need to make sure that we use tests that are slightly harder than the real thing. So by the time you see the real thing, you're just like, yep, I clock in, I clock out. It's like any other Saturday for me. And the reality is this, you don't know how many parents I get on calls with. They do these practice exams and they come in thinking that they don't have a concept issue. They think they have a timing issue or something completely different than a concept issue, right? Because it's impossible to diagnose weaknesses off of tests that are too easy. So then when they take our test and they see that, the reality where they're scoring, they're just like, I had no idea I even needed help in that. I had no idea I had an issue with that because they kept getting it right on the much easier exams. So that's why it's so important. Once we finish the step 3, the test simulation, guess what? Now that we have proper data, we go back into step number 1 and then refinish the process over and over and over again. Now, you still have enough time frame from now up until the November or December SATs. You have the runway, assuming that you're doing the correct things and you start soon. All right, so that's the entire 3-step method here. If you guys need help applying this situation to your teen's specific weaknesses, go ahead and contact me through email or DM. Send me a screenshot of where your teen is scoring right now, and I'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction. No obligations asked. Until then, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next video.